Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 7, Text 32. Goparamahake pratihate vraja viplavaya deve bivarshati pashun kripaya rirakshu garto chilan brahmiva shapta dinani sapta varsho mahindran anagaka kare salilam. When the cowherd men of Vrindavan, under instruction of Krishna, stopped offering sacrifice to the heavenly king Indra, the whole tract of land known as Vraja was threatened with being washed away by constant heavy rains for 7 days. Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy upon the inhabitants of Vraja, held up the hill known as Govardhan with one hand only, although he was only 7 years old. He did this to protect the animals from the onslaught of water. Purport. Children play with an umbrella, generally known as a frog's umbrella, and Lord Krishna, when he was only 7 years old, could snatch the great hill known as Govardhan Parvata at Vrindavan and hold it for 7 days continuously with just one hand. Just to protect the animals and inhabitants of Vrindavan from the wrath of Indra, the heavenly king, who had been denied sacrificial offerings by the inhabitants of Rajabhumi. Factually, there is no need of offering sacrifices to the demigods for their services if one is engaged in service of the Supreme Lord. Sacrifices recommended in the Vedic literature for satisfaction of the demigods are a sort of inducement to the sacrificers to realize the existence of higher authorities. The demigods are engaged by the Lord as controlling deities of material affairs. And according to the Bhagavad Gita, when a demigod is worshipped, the process is accepted as indirect method for worshiping the Supreme Lord. But when the Supreme Lord is worshipped directly, there is no need of worshiping the demigods or offering them sacrifices, as recommended in particular circumstances. Lord Krishna therefore advised the inhabitants of Rajabhumi not to offer any sacrifices to the heavenly king Indra. But Indra, not knowing Lord Krishna in Rajabhumi, was angry at the inhabitants of Rajabhumi and tried to avenge the offense. But competent as the Lord was, he saved the inhabitants and animals of Rajabhumi by his personal energy, and proved definitely that anyone directly engaged as a devotee of the Supreme Lord need not satisfy any other demigods, however great, even to the level of Brahma or Shiva. Thus, this incident definitely proved without a doubt that Lord Krishna is the personality of Godhead, and and that he was so in all circumstances. As he was a child on the lap of his mother, as a boy 7 years old, and as an old man of 125 years in age. In either case, he was never on the level of the ordinary man. And even in his advanced age, he appeared a young boy, 16 years old. These are the particular features of the transcendental body of the Lord. Text 33. Kridhan vane nishi nisha kara rasmi goyam rason mokha kala pada yata murchitena Udipiti smara rojam raja bridadhunam Artur harishati shiro danha danu gasya. When the Lord was engaged in his pastimes of the rasa dance in the forest of Vrindavan, enlivening the sexual desires of the wives of the inhabitants of Vrindavan by sweet and melodious songs, a demon of the name of Shankachuda, a rich follower of the treasurer of heaven, Kuvera, kidnapped the damsels, and the Lord severed his head from his trunk. Purport. We should carefully note that the statements described herein are the statements of Brahmaji to Narada, and he was speaking to Narada of events that would happen in the future, during the advent of Lord Krishna. The pastimes of the Lord are known to the experts who are able to see past, present, and future, and Brahmaji, being one of them, foretold what would happen in the future. The killing of Shankachuda by the Lord is a more recent incident after the Rasa Leela, and not exactly a simultaneous affair. In the previous verses, we have also seen that the Lord's engagements in the affairs of the forest fire was described along with his pastimes of punishing the Kaliya snake, and similarly the pastimes of the Rasa dance and the killing of Shankachuda are also described herein. The adjustment is that all these incidents would take place in the future, after the time when it was being foretold by Brahmaji to Narada. The demon Shankachuda was killed by the Lord during his pastimes at Horika in the month of Falguna, and the same ceremony is still observed in India by the burning of the effigy of Shankachuda one day prior to the Lord's pastimes at Horika, generally known as Holi. Generally, the future appearance and the activities of the Lord or his incarnations are foretold in the scriptures, and thus the pseudo-incarnations are unable to cheat persons who are in knowledge of events as they are described in the authoritative scriptures. Texts 34 through 35. Yecha pralambakara dardura Yecha pralambakara dardura kesharista Male bakamsa yavana kapi pundra kadya Anyecha salva kuja balvala danta vakra Shaptoksha sambara vidurata rukni mukhya Vivamrade samiti salina atachapa Kamboja matsya kuru srinjaya kaikayadya Yasyantya darsanam alam bhatta partha bhima Yajhavyayena harina nilayam tadiyam. All demonic personalities like Pralamba, Dhenuka, Baka, Keshi, Arishta, Chanura, Mushtika, Kuvalapira, Kuvalayapira, elephant, Kuvalayapira, elephant, Kamsa, Yavana, Narakasura, and Pundraka, great marshals like Salva, Dvivira, monkey, and Balvala, Dantavakra, and the seven bulls, Sambara, Vidurata, and Rukmi, as also great warriors like Kamboja, Matsya, Kuru, Srinjaya, and Kekaya, would all fight vigorously, either with the Lord Hari directly, or with him under his names of Baladev, Arjuna, Bhima, etc. And the demons thus being killed would attain either the impersonal Brahmajyoti or his personal abode in the Vaikuntha planets. Purport. All manifestations in both the material and spiritual worlds are demonstrations of the different potencies of Lord Krishna. The personality of Godhead, Baladev, is his immediate personal expansion, and Bhima, Arjuna, etc. are his personal associates. The Lord would appear, and he does so whenever he appears with all his associates and potencies. Therefore, the rebellious souls, like the demons and demoniac men, mentioned by their names like Pralamba, would be killed either by the Lord himself or by his associates. All these affairs will be clearly explained in the 10th canto. But we should know well that all the above mentioned living entities killed would attain salvation, either by being merged in the Brahmajyoti of the Lord, or being allowed to enter into the abodes of the Lord called the Vaikunthas. This has already been explained by Bhismadev in the 1st canto. All persons who participated in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, or otherwise with the Lord or with Baladev, etc., would benefit by attaining spiritual existence according to the situation of their minds at this time of death. Those who recognized the Lord would never enter Vaikuntha, and those who estimated the Lord as only a powerful being would attain salvation by merging into spiritual existence of the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord. But every one of them would get release from the material existence. Since such is the benefit of those who played with the Lord inimically, one can imagine what would be the position of those who devoutly served the Lord in transcendental relationship with him. Text 36. Kalena militadiyam avam rishanurnam stokayusham swanigamo batadurha para avirhitastanu yugam sahi satyavatyam vedhajumam vita pasho vibhajisyatisma. The Lord himself in his incarnation as the son of Satyavati, Vyasadeva, will consider his compilation of the Vedic literature to be very difficult for the less intelligent persons with short life, and thus he will divide the tree of Vedic knowledge into different branches according to circumstances of a particular age. Purport. Herein, Brahma mentions the future compilation of Srimad Bhagavatam for the short-lived persons of the Kali age. As explained in the first canto, the less intelligent persons of the age of Kali would be not only short-lived, but also perplexed with so many problems of life due to the awkward situation of the godless human society. Advancement of the material comforts of the body is an activity in the mode of ignorance, according to the laws of material nature. Real advancement of knowledge means progress of knowledge in self-realization. But in the age of Kali, the less intelligent men mistakenly consider the short lifetime of 100 years, now factually reduced to about 40 or 60 years, to be all in all. They are less intelligent because they have no information of the eternity of life. They identify with the temporary material body because they have no information of the eternity of life. They identify with the temporary material body existing for 40 years and consider it the only basic principle of life. Such persons are described as equal to the asses and bulls. But the Lord, as the compassionate Father of all living beings, imparts unto them the vast Vedic knowledge. In short, treatises like the Bhagavad Gita and for the graduates, the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Puranas and the Mahabharata are also similarly made by Vyasadeva for different types of men in the modes of material nature. But none of them are independent of the Vedic principles. Text 37. Tivadvisham nigama vartmani nisthitanam purbhir mayena vihitir adrishya turbihi lokangyatam mati vimhoham ati pralabham visham vidhaya bahubasyata aupadharmyam. When the atheists, after being well versed in the Vedic scientific knowledge, annihilate inhabitants of different planets, flying unseen in the sky on well-built rockets prepared by the great scientist Maya, the Lord will bewilder their minds by dressing himself attractively as Buddha and will preach on sub-religious principles. Purport. This incarnation of Lord Buddha is not the same Buddha incarnation we have in the present history of mankind. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Buddha incarnation mentioned in this verse appeared in a different Kali age. In the duration of the life of one Manu, there are more than 72 Kali Yugas, and in one of them, the particular type of Buddha mentioned here would appear. Lord Buddha incarnates at a time when people are most materialistic and preaches common sense religious principles. Such ahimsa is not a religious principle itself, but it is an important quality for persons who are actually religious. It is a common sense religion because one is advised to do no harm to any other animal or living being, because such harmful actions are equally harmful to he who does the harm. But before learning these principles of nonviolence, one has to learn two other principles, namely to be humble and to be prideless. Unless one is humble and prideless, one cannot be harmless and nonviolent. And after being nonviolent, one has to learn tolerance and simplicity of living. One must offer respects to the great religious preachers and spiritual leaders, and also train the senses for controlled action, learning to be unattached to family and home, and enacting devotional service to the Lord, etc. At the ultimate stage, one has to accept the Lord and become his devotee. Otherwise, there is no religion. In religious principles, there must be God in the center. Otherwise, simple moral instructions are merely sub-religious principles, generally known as upadharma, or nearness to religious principles. Text 38. Yarhyalayesh vapi satam nahare katasyu pashandino dvijajana vrishala nrideva svaha svadha vasad iti smagironayatra shastha bhavisyati kaler bhagavan yugante. Thereafter, at the end of Kali Yuga, when there exist no topics on the subject of God, even at the residences of so-called saints and respectable gentlemen of the three higher castes, and when the power of government is transferred to the hands of ministers elected from the low-born Sudra class, or those less than them, and when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice, even by word, at that time, the Lord will appear as a supreme chastiser. Purport. The symptoms of the worst conditions of the material world at the last stage the symptoms of the worst conditions of the material world at the last stage of this age, called Kali Yuga, are stated herein. The sum and substance of such conditions is godlessness. Even the so-called saints and higher castes of the social orders, generally known as the Dvijajanas, or the twice-born, will become atheists. As such, all of them will practically forget even the holy name of the Lord, and what to speak of his activities. The higher castes of society, namely the intelligent class of men guiding the destinies of the social orders, the administrative class of men guiding the law and order of the society, and the productive class of men guiding the economic development of the society, must all be properly well versed in knowledge of the Supreme Lord, knowing factually his name, quality, pastimes, entourage, paraphernalia, and personalities. The saints in the higher castes or orders of the society are judged by their proportion of knowledge in the science of God, or tattva gyan, and not by any kind of birthright or bodily designations. Such designations without any knowledge of the science of God and practical knowledge of devotional service are considered to be all decorations of dead bodies. And when there is too much inflation of these decorated dead bodies in society, there develop so many anomalies in the progressive, peaceful life of the human being. Because of the lack of training or culture in the upper section of the social orders, they are no more to be designated as the Dvija Janas, or the twice born. The significance of being twice born has been explained in many places in these great literatures. And again, one is reminded herewith that birth executed by the sex life of the father and mother is called animal birth. But such animal birth and progress of life on the animal principles of eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating, without any scientific culture or scientific culture of spiritual life, is called the Sudra life, or the more explicit, uncultured life of the lower class men. It is stated herein that the governmental power of society in Kali Yuga will be passed over to the uncultured, godless laborer class of men, and thus the Nridevas, or the ministers of the government, will be the Vrishalas, or the uncultured lower class of men of society. No one can expect any peace and prosperity in a human society full of uncultured lower classes of men. The symptoms of such uncultured social animals are already in vogue, and it is the duty of the leaders of men to take note of it and try to reform the social order by introducing the principles of twice-born men trained in the science of God consciousness. This can be done by expanding the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. In the degraded condition of human society, the Lord incarnates as the Kalki avatar and kills all the demoniac without mercy. Text 39. Actually, we'll read this on Monday, so we'll stop here. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhakta Veda Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to Nishangapali Dham Ki Jai, Navadrup Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Amuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Kartik Vrat Ki Jai, Jai Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Tadiya Shaka Mat Ki Jai, Jai Tirabhav Mahamahotsav of Sri Narottam Das Thakur Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Pramanandi Hari 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 Bol, Dhanavad Pranam.